And thanks to you at home for joining us this hour. All right, so first green shoots of spring. Sun finally pushing its way through the clouds. It was a beautiful, sunny, even warm day in Manhattan, which is part of why the ski masks were so surprising. I'm going to say a word here that I don't usually say, let alone on TV, and that's because it's the name of the group, so do not hold it against me. But this is the Russian punk band and protest group Pussy Riot in New York City this week.
We are members of Pussy Riot, Russian protest group. We've been imprisoned in Russia. We've been persecuted. We are in federal wanted list in our country.
We're members of Pussy Riot, a Russian protest group. We've been imprisoned in Russia. We've been persecuted. We're on the federal wanted list in our country. Pussy Riot are a punk band and a protest group that have been jailed in Russia and beaten up and hounded all over the globe now by Russian President Vladimir Putin. They have been chased out of that country. As such, they remain one of the last remaining visible, uncompromising, and alive elements of the Russian resistance to Putin. Putin, of course, has managed to just kill off so many others who dared to oppose him. But this week, members of that Russian group came to America, to New York City, to scream at us, to literally scream at us in an encouraging way, trying to tell us to act now before what has happened to them in their country happens to us here in ours.
Wake up, America! Wake up, America! Wake up, America! Wake up, America!
Wake up, America. You can see the signs they're holding there, including this one on the left here that says nothing special. One member of the group, Masha Alyokina, explained, I think, what they mean by that nothing special sign.
I don't think that there is something special with Russia or Russian people. A totalitarian state can appear anywhere if people are silent.
I don't think there's something special with Russia or Russian people. A totalitarian state can appear anywhere if people are silent. And so that's why they came here. They're persecuted and they've been imprisoned and they are now hunted by their own country, a dictatorship where it is illegal to use the word war to describe a war, where it is illegal for even one person to hold a protest alone or to hold up a protest sign even if it has no words on it. But here they are in our country trying to sound an alarm to tell us to move fast because your country doesn't come back when you lose it to a dictatorship. You see the big sign they were holding there, the one that said freedom of speech, and this other one, which kind of stuck with me, don't give up. It's kind of an unsettling thing. After everything they have been through, they're trying to encourage us.
We are here now because we see the rise of authoritarianism here, and we want to call people, do not be silent, and we want people to remember to not give up, even in the difficult conditions, to have a hope inside, to have belief.
Don't give up, even in the difficult conditions. Have a hope inside, have belief. It's really jarring, right, to hear that from Russian dissidents, that they're the ones encouraging us. It's just, like I said, it's unsettling to see it. But I also feel like, you know what? The American people right now understand the assignment. Like, I feel like right now we are so far from giving up. We are whatever the opposite is of giving up. I mean, we are expecting a massive day of protest tomorrow in this country. I want to show you this from TikTok. This is the sort of hype video for the protests tomorrow that has been circulating online, particularly on TikTok. And it's funny because you'll see here, it's the kind of hook line here is that it's literally about we're done watching the news, we're stopping watching the news, we're going out tomorrow to protest instead. I recognize it's a little ironic for for me to be showing you this on the news, but still, I have no ego about these things, and I think you should see it. Watch. One movement, every state protesting dictators. That is from the 50-51 movement, which started these protests against what Trump was doing very early on in the second Trump term. Remember, 50-51 comes from them organizing 50 protests in 50 state capitals all on one day. That's what 50-51 stands for. But it's them and Indivisible and basically everybody else jumping in together tomorrow in support of these protests. Tomorrow is expected to be the largest day of protests that the country has yet seen since Trump has been back in office. And it looks like it's going to be a really big day. If the number of protests planned actually does happen, and the number of people who have said they're going to show up, then we are easily looking at hundreds of thousands of Americans who are going to be taking part in nonviolent anti-Trump protests tomorrow. More than 1,200 separate protests are planned tomorrow in all 50 states. We're expecting a large gathering in Washington, D.C., but I think maybe every state capital is also going to have a protest, different federal buildings in multiple states, congressional offices, post offices, city centers. Again, we won't know exactly the scale of the protests or their exact character until they happen. We know the White House has canceled all the garden tours they had planned for tomorrow at the White House. They've moved them from tomorrow, Saturday, to Sunday instead because they are expecting large anti-Trump crowds in Washington. So the garden tours are moved, you guys. All week long, people have been sending us here at the Rachel Maddow Show images of their preparations for tomorrow, like these pictures that we got from a group of ladies. They're just a friend group in New Jersey. They say their average group, the average age in their group is 90, but they've been making their signs, getting ready for tomorrow. Hands off Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid. Also, dump Trump. You see the one on the sign on the table there in the back? See his little legs sticking out of the trash can? Any chance anybody here was an art teacher? Even before tomorrow's protests, which, again, we're expecting to be widespread and large, we've seen a lot of protests just in the past few days. We had students protesting yesterday at Columbia University, protesting against Trump arresting and imprisoning student leader Mahmoud Khalil. We had students protesting yesterday in Tempe, Arizona, after Arizona State said it learned that 8 students on their campus have also had their student visas mysteriously revoked by Trump. We had students yesterday protesting at the UC Berkeley campus against Trump shutting down the U.S. Department of Education. And I know what you're thinking. Hey, Maddow, dog bites man. Wow, a protest at Berkeley. What a surprise. But you know what? It really is everywhere if you look for it. Let me show you. I mean, there's Berkeley, yes, but Donald Trump Jr., he spoke at an event in Birmingham, Alabama last night. And the protests were there, too, in Deep Red, Alabama.
You're not welcome here with your money and your greed and your hypocrisy, and we're here to let you know that you're not welcome here.
This is the message protesters want Donald Trump Jr. to hear while he's in Birmingham.
No justice, no peace.
Chanting at and displaying signs for people entering the BJCC to attend the Alabama GOP victory dinner where Donald Trump Jr. attended and spoke.
Again, these aren't part of the big protests that are planned for everywhere tomorrow. This is just what it looks like on a Thursday in Alabama these days. I mean, this was Alabama. On any given day in America now, you might have a very confrontational protest like this one last night in Salinas, California, where someone decided to hold an event celebrating January 6th convicts, including, reportedly, some who were convicted of assaulting police officers. According to local news, multiple venues in Salinas, California told this group no, but one neighborhood venue did agree to host the event. Thereafter, all the neighbors came out to show them what they thought of a commemorative January 6th event. It was, to say the least, not a friendly welcome. But you know, at the same time, here also was Buffalo, New York, Americans turning out with Canadian flags and "We Love Canada" signs, protesting against Trump's various attacks and threats against Canada and the tariffs against Canada. Basically, the American people trying to tell the Canadian people that, hey, it's not us. It's not us. It's this guy, this president, but we do not agree with him. And we do not want the kind of divide between our country that he insists on. Today, this was the federal courthouse in Greenbelt, Maryland. People showing up while a federal court hearing was underway on the case of a Maryland father who the Trump administration admitted this week. They accidentally sent him to a prison in El Salvador, even though they didn't mean to send him there. This man is now being held in El Salvador in that prison indefinitely. And the Trump administration is trying to tell the courts that even though they admit it was a mistake to send him there, they have no intention of getting him back or even trying to get him out of that prison. In the face of that absurdity, these Maryland residents today turned up at the courthouse to support him and his family while the hearing was underway. You see the signs: bring Kilmar Garcia home, free our neighbor Kilmar Garcia, kids need their dads. And this one, which is right to the point, all this is sick. At the conclusion of that court hearing today, the judge hearing the case ordered the Trump administration that they must retrieve that man. They must get him out of that prison in El Salvador and bring him back to the United States by 11:59 p.m. on Monday night. Go do it. Today, of course, you saw what happened in the markets. The Dow dropped more than 2,000 points today. Not a typo. Dow plunges 2,200 points. Yesterday and today are the first time ever that the Dow has dropped 1,500 points or more on 2 consecutive days. 1,600 points yesterday, 2,200 points today. The S&P 500 dropped 10% in 2 days. It dropped 6% today alone. Just for context, whether or not you watch the markets, whether or not you have any money in the markets or a retirement account or whatever, just to get a sense of the scale here, I'll give you 2 metrics here to get a sense of the scale. The first one is the circuit breakers. Do you know about this? The markets have circuit breakers that kick in when things go off a cliff. That's a mixed metaphor, but I think you know what I mean. They call them trading curbs, and they're these shutoffs that kick in automatically and basically stop the market. They stop people from trading for 15 minutes when things have gone unbelievably wrong. And where those circuit breakers kick in, like the threshold of how bad it has to be before the circuit breakers kick in, is when the S&P drops 7% from the previous day's close. Today, the S&P dropped 6%. Had we got to 7, we would have hit the circuit breaker. They would have turned the lights out on the market to try to save us from ourselves. That's one way to understand the severity of what's happened here. And here's another. Look at this. This is the VIX index, VIX. Unlike the stock market graphs where you can tell things are bad when they go down, with the VIX, it's the volatility index. It goes up when things are terrible. It's like the economic crisis meter. And you can see there are just a few big peaks there over time. The first huge peak, that's 2008. That was the global financial disaster of 2008, the worst financial catastrophe since the Great Depression. That's the first big peak. The next big peak is March 2020. That's the equally huge global disaster, right? When the COVID pandemic overran the world, killed millions of people, and basically shut off economic activity like there had been a power outage. So those are the first 2 big peaks there. But now look, new peak. That's now. That's now. That one not caused by the biggest financial catastrophe since the Great Depression or a global pandemic that's killing millions of people. That one caused simply by Donald Trump being president. Again, with his great ideas. And the scale of what he's doing, the scale of the destruction that he has wrought, is a little bit hard to get your head around. I mean, like, you can see the headline writers scrambling to try to find the right words tonight. I mean, here's the Wall Street Journal front page right now. U.S. stocks plunge deeper, capping worst week since 2020, which again was the pandemic. Trump's tariffs set off two-day sell-off as recessionary fears mount. More than $6 trillion erased from market. This has been the lead analysis piece on CNBC.com all day. Trump's tariffs are biggest policy mistake in 95 years. This is the lead editorial today at the Financial Times. America's astonishing act of self-harm. I thought the picture of Trump there actually kind of puts a nice punctuation mark on that. Look what we've done to ourselves. Hi. But this is the lead, quote, if it endures Donald Trump's decision on April 2nd, 2025, to enact sweeping tariffs on U.S. trade partners, will go down as one of the greatest acts of self-harm in American economic history. His actions will wreak untold damage on households, businesses, and financial markets across the world, upending a global economic order that America benefited from and helped to create. Elsewhere in the FT today, they described Trump's actions as, quote, strangely self-sabotaging, quote, economic lunacy that might seem better explained by psychologists than economists. Larry Summers, former Treasury Secretary, says, quote, this is to economics what creationism is to biology, what astrology is to astronomy, what RFK thought is to vaccine science. The Wall Street Journal summarizes tonight, quote, the Dow Jones Industrial Average became the last of the three major financial indices to enter a correction, defined as a decline of 10% or more from a closing peak. After today, the Dow is down 14.9% from its most recent high. The Nasdaq is now a bear market, off 22.7% from its recent high. Anything more than 20% is considered a bear market. The Magnificent Seven stocks, which include NVIDIA, Apple, and Amazon, collectively lost $1.55 trillion in market capitalization this week. That is a record. Apple alone saw $443.5 billion in market value evaporate. I mean, it is hard to get your head around how much damage this one man can cause. I think it's even harder to get your head around simultaneously the fact that he can do damage of this magnitude with such a teeny tiny amount of thought. Right? You think it would take like a grand plan and some big brains to figure out how to destroy the economy of the richest nation on earth. But that's not how it's working out. Turns out it doesn't take a big idea or a lot of big brains working together. I know that this may be something that you remember, but just in case it's not, I'm just going to put this back on the front page here just for a second. Because do you remember where Trump got the tariff thing from in the first place? Do you remember like when and why and how we started talking about tariffs in the first place? It was in his first campaign for president. Trump didn't really have any formal economic advisors. So he told his son-in-law, Jared, to find him an economic advisor. Trump reportedly gave Jared some vague ideas of what his thoughts were on economic issues. You know, something, make me look tough, China bad, something. Jared then decided to find his father-in-law a financial advisor for his presidential campaign by going on the Amazon.com website and starting to browse books. Not like reading the books, because you can't do that on the Amazon website. He was just looking at the covers, looking at the titles. And he found a book title that he thought was so cool. The title was Death by China. Oh my God, that's so cool. That's so awesome. And that apparently was it. Quote from Vanity Fair. Trump gave Jared a summary of his views and then asked him to do some research. Kushner simply went on Amazon, where he was struck by the title of one book, Death by China, co-authored by a man named Peter Navarro. Jared then cold called Navarro, a well-known trade deficit hawk who agreed to join the team as an economic advisor. Navarro was a major advocate for an aggressive pro-tariff policy. Where did Peter Navarro get his idea that tariffs would be a good policy for America? What was his backup for that conviction? Well, he did have backup from a real expert who he cited in at least a half dozen of his books, including the one that Jared found on Amazon, That Fateful Day. In all of his books, Peter Navarro has cited an economics expert to justify his views. And the economics expert he cites is somebody named Ron Vera, V-A-R-A, Ron Vera. When Trump won the presidency and entered the White House, this Ron Vera started circulating a memo around Washington in support of Trump using tariffs in trade policy. According to the New York Times, the memo had been, quote, sent from an email address purportedly belonging to Ron Vera. At one point, Ron Vera wrote in the memo that Trump could, quote, ride the tariffs to victory. The problem is Ron Vera doesn't exist. He never has. The economics expert that Peter Navarro has long cited to explain why he's so gung-ho on tariffs, this person, Ron Vera, is a made-up person. He is a fictional person. Peter Navarro invented Ron Vera as his expert source so he could quote this expert source over and over and over again in his crackpot books. Who is Ron Vera? Ron Vera is an anagram of Navarro, which is his last name. I mean, my name anagrams to Macho Waddler, but I don't see myself trying to talk you into doing what Macho Waddler wants, right?
Sable's Song, A Siren's Journey to Joy. Once upon a time, in a small, worn-out town in Middle America, there lived a little child named Sable. Worn into poverty, Sable's body was frail, so thin that you could see her bones, but her heart was filled with an exuberance that not even hunger could dull. Sable was awkward, with dark, deep-set eyes that sparkled with innocence and wonder. Despite being born a boy, Sable always knew she was different. Inside her lived a girl, bright and effervescent, waiting to bloom.
For more, click tree link in profile.
Bella the Dog from Springfield, A Tale of Truth and Transformation. In the small, charming town of Springfield, Ohio, lived a regal standard poodle named Bella. Bella belonged to Mrs. Vaughn Thursenberg, a well-known figure in the community, always polished, conservative in manner, but a lifelong Democrat. For years, she hosted elegant soirees, engaging in local politics, and treating her home like a kingdom. Bella had grown accustomed to a life of luxury, complete with fancy collars, custom bow ties, and an endless supply of treats from those who adored her. Recently, however, things had changed. Mrs. Vaughn Thursenberg had been watching a lot of Fox News, and it seemed to have swayed her thinking.
For more, click tree link in profile.
A Dying Planet, The Last Harvest.
In the year 2060, Earth is a shadow of its former self, choked by pollution, endless concrete, and abandoned by nature. Only a small fishing village by the sea has managed to preserve the planet's last untouched forest. In this dying world, June and Win, two young girls and the last children in their village, cling to the remnants of hope and innocence. Win roams the forest, collecting the season's last harvest, while June sings songs that echo with a haunting beauty through the village.
For more, click Linktree in profile.
The Park of Secrets.
In the year 2060, near the heart of Florida, just a stone's throw from Disney World, stood a theme park unlike any other, a place known as the House of Secrets. It was a magical park, much like a state fair, filled with towering rides, carnival games, and parades that drew people from all over the world. But among the grand Ferris wheel and the colorful day parade, there was one attraction that outshined them all, the Parade Princess, a mesmerizing mermaid named Kenya. Kenya was a sight to behold. At 22 years old, fresh out of college, she had the kind of beauty that drew people to her like moths to a flame. Her brown skin glowed under the park lights, her hair a stunning mix of purple and pink that cascaded over her shoulders. Little pink hearts adorned her cheeks, and a ribbon of color stretched across her nose. But it wasn't just her beauty that made her special. Her eyes, big and almond-shaped, seemed to capture the hearts of everyone who saw
The Future, Daughters of Liberty, A New Dawn. In 2040, the United States was a fractured nation. still reeling from the fallout of Project 2025. The catastrophic policy that had allowed a resurgence of systemic oppression. The Deep South had seceded once more, forming the antebellum republic, where human trafficking, racial inequality, and gender oppression became tragically normalized. The Second Civil War erupted as the rest of the nation sought to free those trapped in this dystopian regime. After years of bloodshed, Kamala Harris had finally led the Union to victory, restoring a fragile sense of hope. But the battle scars ran deep, especially in places like Louisiana, where the remnants of a broken society still lingered.
For more, click tree link in bio.
I told you. What did I tell you? Didn't I tell you? 'Cause I told you. And when did I tell you? A long time ago. And what did I say will happen when I told you? Exactly what just happened.